Bah, bah. Alrighty. So far, so good. Looks like that's working on that end. Alright, so I'll be doing some more initial testing on some DSi Excel consoles. I hope to get through 4 today. I'm going to be kind of rifling through them pretty quickly. So let's see what we got here. Now this first one is interesting. Not because it's the natural white DSi LL or anything particular. That's not all that special. But according to my notes, it looks like it failed test 2, which I don't really understand. Some of these consoles are like probably up to a year since I put them together, so... And a lot of my testing protocol has sort of evolved over that time. So what I'm going to do is just sort of ignore that and just put it through 3 rounds of testing like I have been doing. So this one might be in better shape than most consoles if I've already put it through a couple rounds of testing. It does say it failed to read game cards, which I don't really know. Well, I won't know what that means until a little later. So, like I said, I'm going to be kind of rifling through these pretty quickly. So I'm not going to really... I'll kind of explain as I go what I'm doing, but I'm not going to go on as much detail as I will on my final test, the third and final test. And since these are initial testings, I usually do there's additional tests I do on these consoles because... Not so much in this case, because it would seem I've already tested this console, but on other consoles that I've freshly assembled, I don't know exactly what parts are working or not. A lot of it is just based on visuals. So, and there's also things like me looking at the screens more intently than I would. So I'm going to start with that. Top screen is a little more blue than the bottom screen. I do detect a little bit of yellowing on the bottom, but I think, generally speaking, I think the screens are pretty good. So just confirming 1.4.1J. Neat. So on the Japanese cons, maybe it's just something I don't really... This is just kind of an aside. But what I noticed on Japanese consoles is they have a third button on this first page. I guess that doesn't happen until later revisions, because I know the Japanese consoles have like an extra setting or two. That's not... I'm not too terribly interested in the reason, but it's just an oddity that I noticed. Screens look good. Minor variation, but I try to get them as close as I can, so that's within reason. Okay, so tested the motherboard and the power board. Console reaches to the menu and opens up an application, which is good. I usually wouldn't make it this far if it couldn't do that, but it's something I like to check. Okay, let's do the 2 sort of oddball one-off tests first, just so I don't forget them and sort of jam them in the middle. First one is sleep. So I need to make sure the console goes into sleep. Screen's turned black. Power button or power light is breathing. I remove the magnet. Comes out asleep. Perfect. Next is image retention. So what I'll do for that is sit on the DSi sounds menu for roughly 2 minutes. And what this is trying to catch is what I'll do is sit on this screen for 2 minutes, and then I'll swap over to the DSi settings menu. And what I'm looking for is this checkered pattern and these big buttons on the bottom screen to see if those transfer over to the settings menu. Functionally, from what I understand, I'm not too fully understanding what's going on, but what I currently understand is if any of these assets are transferred over to the settings menu, then that is a sign that these screens are failing and they need to be replaced. I'm just writing down in my notes that I've done the sleep and image retention test since I only really need to do those once. And sort of the phenomena of failing LCDs. It's not something I fully understand, but there are some pretty clear signs that at least I've found. Screen flickering, on the other hand, I'm not entirely sure what that is. It might not even be a failing screen. Could be a faulty component or something wrong with the potentiometer. I'm glad I only have to do these tests once. I'm not really, don't really like to sit idly for 2 minutes. Alright, about 2 minutes has passed. Okay, I don't see anything. There are some shadows on the left side of these buttons, but to my knowledge, those are normal. Okay. Next is the tactile buttons. Wow, I just slotted in my R4 card. It has a piece of diagnosing software in it. It'll become fairly obvious why I choose this for diagnosing, instead of trying to do it in a game like Mario Kart or Pokemon. So I'll press all the face buttons a few times. Face buttons I'm not too worried about. The shoulder buttons tend to be the problems, but I just double check anyway. I do this test a few times, so I don't need to be too terribly thorough, just as long as it baseline, they just register. Okay. When I'm pressing the shoulder buttons, I kind of press all over the shoulder button. Since the shoulder buttons are rectangular, I kind of press from left to right, doing kind of steady inputs, try to see if they match my pulse or my pace. And then I do kind of more lighter inputs to see if the button actually responds at the actuation point, which it looks like they do. Next is touchscreen, which I have another R4 application that just turns the bottom screen into a sketch pad. Draw a perimeter to see if there's any dead zones. Looks good. Do some swirls to see if there's erratic inputs. Don't see any. There is kind of a straight line down there. I don't know what that's about. That could just been. Need to see if I can get that like weirdly straight line to reoccur. That may have just been something I did on accident. Yeah, okay. Looks good. Then speakers, microphone, and headphone jack. I do combo this with a SD card slot test. I have a song loaded up on the SD card that I'll just read and play off of it, and I usually assume if it can read a song off the detect the SD card and read a song, it's good enough. Doing the volume buttons, the volume is changing. La 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 la. I'm a little off, but microphone works. Sounds decent enough. SD card is red. Then what I'll do is, with a set of earbuds as well, I'll play the song, listen to both channels, plug in the earbuds, listen to both channels, make sure everything is good. Ooh, a little premature there. Right. All good there. So then I have cameras. I just basically just make sure they initialize and there's nothing really strange about them. Yep, those are good enough. They are DSi cameras, so they're not going to be the best things in the world. Charge port. For that, let me plug in my USB tester right here. I'll my papers in the way. That's how I stay somewhat organized. That screen will work. Okay. So I'll plug in the DS as normal. System is responding. Solid charge light. Got an amp draw. Then what I'll do is jiggle the charge port to see if charge port's in good shape and if the solder joints are good, which it looks like it does. The orange light's not going out. Next is game card slot. Just making sure all of my cards are out so I don't accidentally misplace an R4 card and an SD card. So that's what this stack of game cards is for. I'll kind of explain it as I go. So what I'll do is put the game card in as normal, see if it pops up. Then what I'll do is put my fingers on it and sort of shift it from side to side. There's a tiny bit of play in the game card slot. And then what I'll do is increase pressure, like I'll start pushing down on the game card slot while I'm shifting it from side to side, trying my damnedest to get these game cards to disconnect. And kind of just seeing what happens. So far, so good. Nothing's disconnecting involuntarily. Every time it disconnects, I'm ejecting it. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing that game card down all the way to its ejection point, and even going beyond until the game card actually bottoms out, which is a little beyond the actual ejection point. Sort of like a baked-in buffer zone, so you don't have to press the game card too terribly far down to eject it. And then as you're probably seeing, I do a bit of a more violent test of slapping it against my open palm. All of this to try to get these game cards to disconnect when they shouldn't be. Which, if you can imagine, if you're playing a game off a game card and the game card disconnects for whatever reason, well, your console will either freeze or just shut off. And in the era of manual saves, that can be rather annoying. So a good, functional game card slot will not disconnect involuntarily at any point during this testing, aside from me ejecting the game card voluntarily. A lot of the times, if a game card kind of cuts in and out, could be the pins are dirty, or in more sort of, I guess I should call them a little more extreme cases, the pins actually need to be bent up a little. The pins are kind of like knuckles, really, and when you slide the pins over them, the knuckles kind of depress to just make a good solid, or they have a springiness to them, so when you put the game card over them, they sort of, contract, I guess is the word. And I can only imagine that after hundreds of or thousands of hours and maybe hundreds of game cards just sliding over those pins, just bend them down. Or maybe if there was an object jammed into the game card slot that maybe it didn't mangle the pins, but just like shoved them down for whatever reason. I can only really speculate. I assume it's just because of just cycling just tens or hundreds of game cards over those pins over the years. But since a lot of the times I take these consoles and completely separate all the parts, I don't really have many context clues beyond just like, oh, this motherboard has bent down pins. So it could have been from a really worn console, like, yeah, this thing has seen hundreds, if not thousands of hours of just love. Which I know that that can be kind of love can be a very subjective term, as if you just kind of look at it as it is, it's just like, yeah, the shell isn't in very good shape, but if a shell isn't like crazy damaged from like rust or actually physically damaged, like bent or destroyed, a lot of the times it's just like, yeah, these consoles or these parts have seen hundreds of thousands of hours, many pockets, sometimes from around the world, really. Like, how many elementary schools have this one's? Oh, okay. So, I've had this happen with this game card before, and this is sort of a weird... I think this just might be a weird software glitch. Sometimes if you take a card out and put it back in really quick, it doesn't show up. I am less inclined to think that is a game card slot problem. I think that's just a software glitch. So right now the game card's in, it's not showing up, but I am oh, there it goes. Okay. So I think that just might be a game card issue, or maybe just a software glitch. I don't really attribute that to a faulty game card slot. That, however, might be. I am bottoming out the card, which is sort of a criteria where it's like, this game card's really having a hard time. And it might not be this game card. I feel like it was one of the Harry Potter games that were having a problem when I sort of click them in too quickly. So it might just be this game card. For it to be the one game card of 20 game cards that is having a rough time, I would say that that average is looking really good. It does disconnect when I bottom out the card, and now bottoming out is beyond the ejection point, which I understand to kind of be a point of no return. So I don't really worry too much about this particular scenario, but it is just this game card that's doing it. Okay, that seems to be fairly consistent. So as a kind of final thing, I'll do a cleaning on the game card slot. My hunch is it's just something about this game card that's just a little quirky. I don't know if like the memory chip is starting to die or what's going on there. Maybe it's just yeah, I don't want to say. I don't know enough about how game cards are sort of interpreted by the console. A lot of that software stuff still kind of mystifies me. It's black magic as far as I'm concerned. What I do think I at least understand is how a DSi XL should perform on a baseline level, which is what I'm used to testing. So, I didn't really explain that. I dribbled 91% alcohol on the pins of this game card, kind of shook off the extra, and now I just sort of insert it into the game card slot multiple times. That is my best method of cleaning. It does kind of put wear on a game card, and also some of the alcohol goes around onto the label. I haven't had any problems with the alcohol on the labels, but I definitely wouldn't trust that it wouldn't damage it. I wouldn't put money on it not damaging it, but none of my game cards that I use for cleaning have suffered any damage, so your mileage may vary is sort of how I will say that. So, I must have cleaned the game card slot before because I was not able to get this result. Failed to read game cards. I'm positive I didn't swap the motherboards. Ah, well, what I didn't do is actually look up my notes on this console. Silly me. So I have digital notes as well where I keep my shell. I have my shell serial number as well as my motherboard serial number just so I can track any sort of repairs that I do. So maybe that'll help explain. So this is a white Japanese 1082, the first 4 numbers. Forgot to add motherboard.txt. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. So when I assembled this console, I forgot to take notes. Well, no time like the present. I need to find the motherboard that this belongs to then. Silly me. Well, at least I'm honest and don't just leave it blank. If I left it blank, it would be like, uh-oh, what? Why is it blank? Did I accidentally delete the file? The shell's in pretty good shape, actually. It does have a bit of a scuff there on the corner, right below the shoulder buttons. They're a little discolored. They're actually, funny enough, the scuffs are more white than what the white console would suggest, but the natural white color scheme is more of a cream, especially this back shell. I'm not really a fan of it. So let's get this motherboard into my records to see if I have anything to note about it. Looks good internally. Okay, so it is... Zoom in on it. Zoom and enhance. 201.11.6012. That's kind of a not very descriptive header. Let me... DSi-XL motherboards Japanese. It is U01N07EA05. I kind of go off the A05 and then backtrack from there. That's 77A. Wait, why don't I see it? It is Japanese. It's not... Unless I threw it in one of the... let me just do a search of this serial. U01N07E. Whoa, I did not put this motherboard in my records. That's a bit wild. I'm usually pretty good about putting all this stuff in my records. I need to just check this again. I can start with the header. I think the first string of numbers is fairly generic to denote maybe a batch number or something. I guess it's not as generic as I thought. 1-1. Oh, because 16012. I don't have this motherboard in my records for some reason. Well, it works just fine. And a pretty good indicator is the condition of the game card slot. It's spotless. Doesn't have any sort of rust or corrosion on it, so I am fairly pleased with it. I don't know why I didn't record this number. I'm usually pretty good about that, so I'll keep this note that I forgot to add the Mobo. Mobo wasn't in records. Question mark? Just to sort of keep the idea that I really kind of flubbed that up. I don't really know how I screwed that up on sort of 2 different fronts. Let me add now a Word document with this motherboard. 20116.012. What I should do is actually look at my sold consoles to make sure I really didn't make an oopsie and claimed this motherboard as sold. It's not crazy important. A lot of the motherboards have been selling really don't need any repair work. None of those active ones should have... Okay, let me just search it all. Should only be one result. Okay, it is just the one result. So, yeah, no, for some reason, I did not add this. So it is Japanese. I think it was running 1.4.4 or 1.4.1. Where the hecker doodle? Oh, there it is, 1.4.1J. And no known issues. Alright, well. That solves that problem. Odd problem I usually don't have, but you know. Suppose it's first time for everything. Let's get this back together. Now, the only other test I can't perform is the Wi-Fi test. That I usually perform last. Mainly because I don't have an access, or the access point in my home is far too new for DSi consoles to connect to. I think it's just because the security is far too new. What security protocol is now sort of standard. Well, at least to the best of my understanding, but on my phone that I'm currently using as a camera, I can set it to a lower band without security, and I can connect my DSIs to that without it, or with it, but well, I'm currently using my camera, or my phone as a camera, so I can't test that right now. I've never had a console fail, so I'm not worried about it. And I don't test anything beyond just making sure it connects to an access point. I don't update the consoles at all, or try any online features. It's not... I don't deem that as being very important. It's not like the servers are really online for any of these anyway. I think a lot of the server-based things are homebrew nowadays. And I'm not aware of any, like, console-level bans on DSi consoles. But that's not really something I worry about. Most people who are getting these consoles nowadays just homebrew it. The process is far too simple, almost not to. Especially with the features you get. Okay, this console is in good shape. Passed test 1, I could not get it to fail a game card slot test, so I guess I'll just call it test 1 pass. That whatever was wrong with the game card slot, I must have fixed it, or maybe it just needed a cleaning, and after the cleaning it worked just fine. So test 1's good. So I'll move on to the next console, which will be a series of bronze consoles.